Hello, everyone, and welcome to the session on how to use metacognitive strategies for improved learning outcomes. In this session, we will focus on different metacognitive strategies and particularly understand chunking and summarizing for appreciating learning material. You must have heard of the term metacognition. Metacognition is nothing but thinking about our way of thinking. In metacognition, we use our way of thinking to perform better along our learning journey. We plan by setting clear goals, decide on strategies, and anticipate challenges. We monitor by tracking progress and assess if strategies are working and adjust if needed. We evaluate by reflecting on the outcome, identifying our strengths and weaknesses, and refine future plans. This process is cyclical in nature because each stage informs the next, creating a feedback loop for continuous improvement. We can use different strategies based on different contexts. While beginning your learning journey, there are certain questions that you should ask yourself before doing the task. Is this learning task similar to a previous task? What is it that I want to achieve? What should I do first? While doing the task, think about this. Am I on the right track? Can I do something differently? Who can I ask for help? Or what resources are available to me for help? After the task, you can reflect by wondering what worked well, what could you have done better, and could you apply the way of learning to some other such situations? In this course, we will be focusing on three main metacognitive strategies: chunking, summarizing, and color coding. In this module, for week 1, we would focus on chunking and summarizing. Chunking refers to breaking down learning material and grouping it for better recall and reduce stress. When we take a look at any new or unknown material, we definitely get overwhelmed, especially if the topic is difficult or seems to be difficult. So obviously, if we are able to digest or understand the material bit by bit, that is chunk it, we will realize that it's just getting a little easier to learn the entire material. Similarly, we can also summarize the essential or the main points of the learning material so as to absorb only the important information. Now let us focus on the ways to chunk learning material. The first way is to use certain themes or certain common features to categorize data. We will understand this by looking at a few examples. The second one could be creating acronyms. For example, if you have a lot of information, you can probably just make acronyms where every sentence or main points first alphabet is a part of the acronym. And chunking definitely helps us in micro learning or that understanding the learning material in smaller parts. So the first example that we are going to look at for chunking is a research paper. So you can see I've taken a part of the research paper. It's a short text which is talking about AI in education. So what I can do is use different colors for coding the sentences. So the first sentence talks about AI in education, and the second one, I'm not sure of it. I feel the third one is also talking about AI in education. And if you see in both the sentences that have been marked, the word adaptive learning is prominent. And then when we have a look at the next sentence, the last sentence of the introduction, it talks about collaboration with uh, some other tools. So probably I'll mark that separately. Now in the second paragraph, I feel that we're talking about certain problems with AI. See, potential over-reliance, so I'm marking it with blue. Then when we move on to the next one, again this seems to be some sort of drawback or some sort of negative point related to AI. The next sentence talks about AR and VR, that is augmented reality and virtual reality. This also seems to be a collaboration with AI. So probably I'm going to talk about it using, I'm going to mark it with green. Okay. And then in the next paragraph, we are talking about the future of education with AI, or the role of AI in the future of education. Probably that's a separate point. So you can see in the last part I have used another color to mark the point. So you can see different colors can help us in sort of classifying or creating chunks of related information. These are also known as thematic chunks. So this tool is definitely helpful in sort of organizing the information for better consumption. Chunking can be applied to all types of learning objects. In this scenario, I have used the blood typing game to understand how we create trial and error chunks. So I have no prior knowledge of how to classify blood types or do transfusion. So what I'm doing over here is I am just experimenting to adapt my learning process. So you can see I see A has equal coloration than with B, and RH shows less of color. So I assume it is AB negative. But I realize that I'm wrong. So what I do now is move towards O, because I know it cannot be A or B exclusively, and I realize that less color actually means positive RH. So this is how I have understood how to type blood or classify it without really knowing much about it. Now we move on to the transfusion process. So we can see the person's blood is O RH positive. So obviously I use O positive as a donor bag and it works. But let me just experiment. Maybe A positive can also work. That's not true. So I realized that O negative, let me try if negative blood group can be given to the O positive patient, and I realized that it can be given. So I'm able to use different combinations to understand what works and what doesn't work. So let me see what is the other bag that I can use. So A positive also doesn't work, and I try to play safe and I use either O positive or O negative. Now you can see I'm going to use another trial and error chunk. So again, I draw the blood. This is a very easy task. It's not that challenging. Now when I move on to the blood typing in this case, let's see what is the output. So I can see that A has color, B does not really have much of color, and RH is filled. So I'll probably go to A, and I went to positive and I realized that it has to be negative. Oh, all right, so it's B blood group, because less color here means that is the blood group. So I realized that more of color for RH is actually negative. So the blood group identified as B negative. And if you notice, this time I took less time to classify or type the blood. So when I'm giving the blood bags, I'm again trying different combinations. I know that B negative would be the safest option, but just doing different types of trial and error helps me derive the outcome a little easily and tells me more about my way of thinking. So I can see I used B negative and the patient is saved. So this is how I am able to adapt my own learning process by using my own experiments or whatever I have performed in the previous tasks. And this is how chunking can help the learner move forward in their learning journey. Just as chunking tries to break down the learning material, summarizing is just sort of providing a bird's eye view to the different parts of the learning material. Now, there are three different ways to summarize. First, just write down a common short summary for broader audience. That is when we just write the main points. Secondly, just like we create thematic chunks, we can create thematic summaries or summaries which are common to the themes of the learning content. Thirdly, we can write down the main points in the form of bullet points based on chronology or just some other kind of strategy. Now let us look at each of these types of summaries for the research paper that we had chunked earlier. When I'm writing down a summary for the broader audience, I have just written down the four main themes or the four main points that I feel the topic is all about. So you can see that I haven't really classified it, but I have just written down what I feel the particular topic is mainly talking about. However, when I'm deciding to write summaries based on themes, I can probably write down the main points or the topic themes: early AI applications, adaptive learning, collaboration, challenges, integration with other technologies, and future vision. By writing down themes, the main themes, I'm able to then write down the summaries accordingly. I feel that for the research paper, this is the best approach to learning the content. Now, based on the way the text was written in the research paper, here we can just write down the main points in the order of their occurrence, or sometimes it could be chronology, sometimes it's just the way the article is written or the paper is written. So you can see the first point is AI started by automating tasks like reading and then evolved to adaptive learning. And then what does it help us do? There are certain concerns, the future, and so on. So bullet points also help us in summarizing what are the main points in a particular order. Now, when we look at the second example, that is the educational game, the blood typing game, we will find it difficult to just summarize it, but maybe what we can do is summarize your experience. So maybe we can understand how we broke down the key concepts, how the first task was drawing the blood of the patient, which was not that challenging. Then, what did you learn when you performed the blood typing activity? Now, there you can understand how you tried out different combinations and you were able to arrive at the correct blood group. And obviously, the third part was how are you transfusing the blood? Is it what combinations work, what doesn't work? So this is how you can understand your own learning process. And obviously, with each trial and error chunk, you were able to track your learning. Maybe you can write down your notes while performing each trial and error chunk so as to adapt your learning process and perform the task more accurately within lesser time. In this module, we have understood that metacognition is a powerful tool that helps us understand more about ourselves. This understanding and knowledge helps us perform better in the learning process. We have also understood how chunking and summarizing can help us understand the unknown learning content and learning environment easily. We can also appreciate that while being contradictory in nature, chunking and summarizing can go hand in hand while helping the learner perform for improved outcomes. Thank you so much for watching, and in case of any doubts or clarifications, please write to me on the discussion board.